My name is Jordan Wood. I'm here to bring to you a little brief introduction, just a little bit of information on Enron and the scandals that they went through in 2003. The rise and fall started over. Well, the Enron company is known as one of the most innovative companies in the world. In American history, there's been many controversies in the business. However, the most important one of all time, well, in some people's opinion, will have to be the Enron scandal of 2003. Many owners were convicted of heinous crimes like money laundering, tax evasion, and extortion. So, here's a little bit of info on it. Enron had a couple of CEOs during their time in history. Kenneth Lay, who is pictured here, Andrew Fastow, who's pictured here. They were both known for the heinous crime that misrepresented $618 million, which destroyed a multi-billion-dollar empire. And the major players in there were Kenneth Lay, Andrew Fastow, and Jeff Skilling. All of these were like CEOs or major players that had large contributions to the scandal. And another will have to be the accounting firm Arthur Andersen, who eventually had to close their doors due to the mismanagement of funds and the unethical beliefs that they had in their company. It all started when Lay took over Enron, which was Enron at the time, in 1980. It became an energy company, and at that time bought out the Houston Natural Gas Company. And they eventually changed their name to Enron. Enron began business only in North America at the first part, and then in the 1990s it had grown globally, becoming one of the biggest natural gas producers in the world. With a lot of success came, Enron received a lot of demise for their recent success. Many people couldn't understand how fast they grew. They grew from a small Houston company to like a global company, making multi-millions of dollars. Enron had many key players from different employees, starting from President Kenneth Lay, who I mentioned before. Lay was in charge of all the finance decisions. Lay started off born in Missouri, and he used his power to control the scandal. When he bought stock in Enron, which is how most of the executives got paid, he would convince other investors to purchase stock from him so money would grow in his pockets. And then he took the money, instead of putting it on the books, they would ship it off to like offshore accounts and use partnerships so they wouldn't have to record these offshore accounts. At this point in time, he knew that the stocks were falling, but he couldn't really understand why the stocks were falling. So what he did, he convinced employees to put their pensions and 401k plans all into stocks. So once the stocks ran out, or once the stocks immediately eliminated, then the employees wouldn't have no money and he would just get rich off of the scheme. That was his scheme. Another company that was involved would have to be the Arthur Andersen Company, who was involved by not checking and making sure they were doing the right thing with the books. Arthur Andersen was a big known company, known as the Big Five in the accounting firm. The Big Five included Deloitte & Touche, Ernst & Young, KPMG, PwC, and of course, Arthur Andersen Corporation. These companies were known as the top firms in accounting. Enron asked investors for money just for different partnerships. Therefore, Enron continued to grow and well. Even though they didn't have to put the money on the books, they used partnerships to disclose and hide the amounts that they had to put in the books. Another player that was involved is Jeff Skilling. He was one point in time the CEO of Enron Corporation, who got hired by Lay in 1990, and he didn't become CEO until 2001. He increased Enron's earnings in 2001 by $132 million. He had brought up the idea that they didn't need any assets due to the growth, and he had brought up the idea to Lay in 2000. With all the money laundering and all this cheating that was done, Skilling gained a net worth of an estimated $27 million. He wanted to know how to put down profit, to gain profit without showing it to others. The last key player involved in the Enron scandal was Andrew Fastow. He first started off as the chief financial officer in 1998, but gained a real great position in 2001. He was in charge of the majority of the company's records. and he was in charge to make sure the accounting firm was doing it correctly, what they had to do. The Enron company started making huge profits because in the business law, they had a rule against monopolies, but in 1999, they got rid of the laws, so that Enron pretty much created a monopoly without necessarily calling it a monopoly. In Enron's prime, they continued and they had showed over $100 billion in assets and revenue, which led to Fortune 500 company named it America's most innovative company for 6 consecutive years. In 2001, there had been a report that Enron was mismanaging funds, and that's when all broke loose. The fall of Enron started because of poor money management, and the executives knew about the whole problem. They had a finance worker named Sharon Watkins, who was pictured here, that Andrew Fastow was hired. No. There was a financial analyst named Sharon Watkins who met with Kenneth Flay in 2001. This was before and Jeff Skilling was CEO. And she met with him saying that the accounting firm Arthur Andersen wasn't doing their name right. They wasn't putting the books right, and this could ruin a big company like Enron. So in 2002, they did an investigation, the SEC, and they reported that there was a $638 million deficit in Enron's books compared to the numbers that they should have. So in 2003, they investigated the success of Enron. Once Enron revealed their 5-year debt of $638 million, then people were desecrated. They started taking their money out of stocks. Once they realized the stocks were a penny, 1 penny. That means Abe Lincoln on the copper thing. Yes. People did not really understand what was going on. While they had a monopoly created, people did not understand, and that led to the big investigation with people going to court. These different companies were investigated, and finally, in 2001, Kenneth Flay, who was the original CEO of Enron, the jury found him guilty on numerous counts of fraud, while Flay never went to jail due to his untimely death in 2006. People perceived he would have received 10 years in prison. In 2004, Andrew Fastow pleaded to many counts of fraud and agreed to 10 years in prison and pleaded as long as he worked with the police to convict other executives of Enron. The last apprentice of the Enron scandal was Jeff Skilling, who was rumored to have mental problems, who attempted to kill himself once he figured out that his name was in the Enron scandal. Skilling was sentenced to 24 years in prison, and in addition, he was fined all kinds of money from all this chaos when his sentencing happened. The last was Arthur Andersen, which was one of the big five at one point in time, whose image was damaged due to the case against Enron. And once they began to open their doors back up, they realized that people did not want to do accounting with them. This was devastating to them. And so now all had to realize what was at stake. Now that they had success, it's time for the people that were involved with the Enron scandal to serve their time for the crimes that they committed. Even having their numbers stated in $1 million and using partnerships to hide all the money that they received from investors, Lay, Skilling, Fastow, and the company of Arthur Andersen each have consequences that they must now face, and what they did as an individual and company was completely wrong. My name is Jordan Wood, and from Channel 102 English, good night and get right.